This is the Anfield Road Wolves, and my name is Jateen. Welcome to our YouTube channel, ARW Now. Give us a thumbs up, subscribe, give us a like. Also, go to Twitter and like our Twitter page at the official ARW. Last week, the guys had a pod where they spoke about, just for a little bit of laughs and giggles, the ultimate sick note 11 of the Premier League history. Basically, looking at players that were always unavailable or are always unavailable for their teams. No need to say Darren Anderton was the captain, the chairman, everything you want of the sick note 11. But very interesting was Jordan Henderson's name was mentioned in the pod. Jordan Henderson? Yes. So what I'm going to do is look at basically what exactly is the injury that is keeping Jordan Henderson in and out of the Liverpool team. How does this injury come about? How do we unpack the injury? And what does it hold for the future? The first thing that we're going to be looking at is the Jordan Henderson's availability over the last two Premier League seasons. So basically the 2015-2016 season and then the 2016-2017 season. So just a few statistics that I've got in terms of the 2015-2016 season. He played 31 games in that season, including 5 England internationals. However, he only played 26 of a possible 63 games for Liverpool. That was an availability of 41%. Interesting to note is that in those 26 games, 22 games were played in 21 weeks. 22 games in 21 weeks. In the 2016 season, 2017 season, he played 32 games, including 5 England internationals. Again, he was only available for 27 out of 48 Liverpool games. That's an availability of 56%. Over the 2 seasons, you're averaging out his availability of, it works out to just over 50%. However, in the 2016-2017 season, all of the 27 games that he was available for were played in a space of 24 weeks. Again, it's important to remember, so 2015-2016 season, 22 games in 21 weeks. 2016-2017 season, 27 games in 24 weeks. Liverpool fans are synonymous with basically calling Daniel Sturridge our sick note player. Daniel Sturridge is always sick for a variety of different reasons. However, over the last 2 seasons, Daniel Sturridge's availability for the past 2 seasons has been 46% and 56%, and overall of 50% over the last 2 seasons, compared to Jordan Henderson, which I said was 41% and 56%, which gives you 47% for the last 2 seasons. So in fact, Daniel Sturridge's availability for the last 2 seasons was higher than that of Jordan Henderson. We're not saying any of the two is of ever acceptable standard, but it's just a comparison between the two players. Let's look at Jordan Henderson's injury and when did this heel or foot issue become a problem. So we're going to go back to 2015-2016 season, and as early as the second game at home to Bournemouth, I think where Christian Benteke scored the win in a 1-0 win, Jordan Henderson picked up an ankle or a foot injury. This was the first time that it really came to the fore. So he picked up that he was out for basically 2 weeks, and then again in September 2015, December 2015, January 2016, again he had a metatarsal and a foot ankle injury. He managed the end of the season and even played for England in some friendlies and represented England at the Euro 2016 tournament. Basically, I think he had 1 performance at the Euros. In the 2016-2017 season, he started off fairly well, was able to manage his injuries, but then on the New Year's Eve game against Manchester City, he picked up the foot injury there. He missed 2 weeks then, and then came back for the game against Manchester United and played 6 games in 28 days, or 4 weeks, including 4 games in 16 days. His last game, unfortunately for us, has been against Spurs on the 11th of February 2017. I go back where I said in 2016-2017 season, basically from the start of the season to You're looking at the Man City game, which was around the 31st of December. He played about 27 games in 24 weeks. Note the basically the time period. You're looking at least a game per week. What we're going to now then, after the injury that Jordan Henderson suffered against Spurs in February, there was no official announcement from the club in terms of the extent of his injury, what the injury was, or how long the injury would be for. All that we knew was it was a foot injury. Nobody knew how bad it was, the extent of the injury, and how long he'd be out for. Initially, there were just a few reports saying that Jordan Henderson would miss 1 or 2 games, and 1 or 2 games became 3 or 4, and never did the club come out and say this is the extent of the injury and this is the period that Jordan Henderson will be out for. So, what is the exact of the scientific name of the injury? So basically, the injury that Jordan Henderson suffered with or is suffering with is plantar fasciitis. I believe, or the reason that I think Jordan Henderson, that the injury was not made public, or basically the club did not make a statement in terms of the extent of the injury, was they were not sure. So before we get to why they were not sure, let's get to the scientific explanation of the injury. So the first thing is, injury is called plantar fasciitis. As all of you know, the injury is on the foot. So basically, at the bottom of your foot, you have a fascia, which is like a tissue substance. A tissue substance which connects the heel bone to the toe bone. So it runs from the bottom of the heel all the way to the bottom of the toe bones, covers the entire sole of the foot. And then this sheet, when you have plantar fasciitis, this sheet gets inflamed. It's a fibrous sheet. It gets inflamed. So that's a simple explanation of what the injury is. Might sound very simple. It's a very common injury amongst long distance runners because of. So what is the reason of the injury? The reason of the injury can be overuse, overexertion, or plain and simple biomechanics. So it's a very common injury, as I said, amongst long distance runners and even amongst football players. I think there's been previous football players that have suffered with the same injury. So we're looking at, as I said previously, in terms of the games that Jordan Henderson played in those 2 seasons, the intensity is that he played at least a game a week and sometimes probably 1.5 games per week. So it really is an overuse, but it's a combination of overuse together with his biomechanics. Now, we all know that Alex Ferguson commented on Jordan Henderson's walking style and said that he walks funny. There was some method to his madness. So that the way that Jordan Henderson walks, he would overpronate his foot in terms of when he steps down, his foot would roll inwards towards the arch. So every time that he steps down, a normal step would be flat on the ground, but every time Jordan Henderson steps, it's a overpronation, so your foot or the sole of the foot is rolling in towards the arch. Obviously, you can imagine continuous and repeated overexertion of this can lead to an inflammation of the injury. So what do we do? So in most circumstances, to cure or to treat this injury, you use NSAIDs, your non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drugs, or a combination of a cortisone injection, basically just to ease the inflammation, and 4 to 6 weeks of rest, depending on the seriousness of the injury. So basically, you take your anti-inflammatory drugs and you look at rest because it's an injury that just needs no exertion. I'm sure you've seen people walk around in moon boots. What the moon boot does is it takes away all the stress, it takes away all the force that would be applied on the foot. So the moon boot basically allows you to walk normally without applying pressures on the bottom of the foot. So we go back now and we said, why did the club not say Jordan Henderson's got a plantar fasciitis injury out for 6 months? I think what the club were hoping for was that initially they'd give it a period of rest, they'd see how it responds to the rest, and they'd carry on. One thing to remember is plantar fasciitis injury is an excruciating pain. So we could all be thinking, okay, fine, let him take. Lots of players have taken anti-inflammatory drugs, have taken cortisone injections, and carried on playing. However, it gets to an extent or to a point where the anti-inflammatories and the cortisone drugs and the cortisone injections do not make a difference. The pain is a sharp, striking pain that runs on the sole of the foot, that runs on the base of the foot, and literally shoots up the leg. It is extremely excruciating. It's basically like somebody sticking a knife in the bottom of your foot, and then you trying to walk, you trying to, let alone forget playing football, but you're just trying to walk on this here. So I think Jurgen Klopp has always expressed his concern about this particular injury, and his concern that basically Jordan Henderson's not always available. And I think what the club were hoping for the best scenario, was for the bone to actually break. I know you basically say, why must the bone break? Hang on. So a bone break basically gives you a clean break and a full rehabilitation. So if the bone, I think the club were hoping in basically around March, April, that the bone would break. There'd be a full break of the bone. He'd get a full rehabilitation of 8 weeks. Come the start of the season, he'd be fully rehabilitated, good to go, and we're ready to go for a new season. However, the bone did not break. So if the bone did not break, means that the issue is still there. Question you might be thinking, why did we stop him from playing? We should have let him continue playing throughout March, throughout April, and force eventually the bone to break. As I said before, the pain is extremely excruciating. Even with anti-inflammatory drugs, even with cortisone injections, the pain can be extremely excruciating and very difficult to even walk on. So the worst thing was that the bone did not break for us. Where does this leave us now? So Jordan Henderson's had, since the start of February, he's had March, April, May, June. So he's had about 4 months, 16 weeks of rest put in, and he's basically been back in the gym, working hard, ready for preseason. However, the concern that we have is that the bone has still not broken. So I would not say that the injury is going to go away. Where does this leave us now? I think it's well known that Klopp is basically targeting a central midfielder. And this is mainly because of the reliability of Jordan Henderson's availability. What can we expect for the new season? Well, I think that Jordan Henderson will be playing, but the load would need to be managed in terms of he would not, I don't think he'd be able to play 2 to 3 games a week. He'd have to be one of the players that plays 1 game a week. As soon as the load increases, the games come thick and fast, and if he's put in all the games, the injury will flare up again. What happens when the injury flares up again? We're in that cycle again where he'll need to be given 3 to 4 weeks off, complete rest, no force or no pressure on the foot, and let the foot heal. So basically what we're looking at then is Jordan Henderson playing 3 to 4 games, or a game once a week, or if he plays 6 games in a month, maybe the extra, basically too much exertion on the foot could lead to him then missing 3 to 4 weeks. What is the other? Obviously, there must be many players have suffered with this injury, and there must be some sort of cure for this. Obviously, there's a surgical procedure, but surgical techniques have included the removal of spony burrs from the sorry have included the removal of bony spurs from the heel bone and the release of plantar fasciitis, of the release of the plantar fascia from the bone itself. But the results are inconsistent. The surgery is very invasive, and later problems to the nerve damages and changes to the mechanics of the foot, and the risk is just too high. So I think really a last option is surgical intervention of this injury. Other thing that we could look at is basically change in the walking style, change in his gait, um, improved boots, and I'm sure that the club are consulting the leading and the best orthopedic surgeons and researchers to help with this in terms of the boots that Jordan Henderson would be wearing, as well as changing his walking style. But remember, it's not that easy just to change your walking style. You've been walking, if he's now 25 or 26 years old, you've been walking in a certain way for 26 years of your life. All of a sudden, to change the biomechanics of how you walk is extremely difficult. And the changes in doing that is not immediate. It's not always successful, and the changes might be, if successful, 5 to 10%. So yes, they're basically looking at him trying to change a little bit of his gait, a little bit of his walking style, trying to um, improve boots in terms of add extra cushioning, add extra padding, reducing basically his weight himself, adjustment of the running gait, and all of the above could help and could show a change in or less likelihood of the injury. But the question obviously remains, will he be able to change his style and will he be able to change his gait? This is extremely difficult, as I said, for a sports person where running is a crucial part of the game. Where do we stand now? I think best case scenario is we need to look at how, and the medical team will obviously manage his games. I think I mentioned at the start of our pod in terms of the number of games that he played. 22 games in 21 weeks in the 15-16 season. That's basically more than a game a week. 27 games in 24 weeks in the 16-17 season, more than a game a week. Going back to the season before that, at the 2014-2015 season, he played 63 games for Liverpool club and for club and country. So it's a combination of overexertion as well as his biomechanics. What the club would need to do going forward is manage the number of games that Jordan Henderson plays. I definitely cannot see Jordan Henderson playing a game on a Saturday, a game on a Wednesday, a game on a Saturday. The load would just be too much for him to handle. We'd have a breakdown again, we'd have a reoccurrence of the injury, and every 4 weeks, Jordan Henderson will be out for 3 to 4 weeks where we have to overgo the process. If you do hear, and I think basically, remember, they're also looking at the long-term sustainability of the player's career. So they don't want this to be an injury where it continues and keeps going and keeps coming. I think in the long term, if you do hear of a bone break, a foot bone break for Jordan Henderson, that's good news for us, right? That's definitely good news for us because it helps cure the pain and it helps cure the injury long term. For now, I'm sure Klopp and his medical team will manage the games that he plays, will manage the load exerted on both feet, as well as try and helping him with the biomechanics. And we just need to manage the game time, and I think that is why other central midfield options are being looked at. Because Jordan Henderson, I think, cannot assure the club that he will be available 100% of the games and the injury won't affect him. Well, for now, we just need to wish him all the best. Hope there's not a reoccurrence of the injury. Hope that it's managed properly. Because remember, every reoccurrence, he'll be out for 3 to 4 weeks. Let's just wish him well. Let's hope the bone breaks. and we'll get a full healing on it. And I think everybody wants to see the captain in the team, because he definitely adds value in terms of, and we want to be basically making the choice for the choice for central midfield as Jordan Henderson, not Jordan Henderson when he's fit, or Jordan Henderson if he's fit. Thanks, guys. That's just a simple analysis, a simple analogy of Jordan Henderson's injury. We thought we'd just give you a little bit more detail. Give us your comments, give us your feedback in terms of what you thought of the video, or give us, if you'd like to find out any other sports injury or sports science related issues, please feel free to give us, drop us a comment. Again, thanks for following, guys. Subscribe to ARW now, as well as following our Twitter page at the official ARW. Thanks. I'm Jateen, and out. Up the Reds.